Good morning and welcome to our final webinar to celebrate Black History Month 2021. We are so super excited to have you join us today. My name is Raj Dohill and I will be your host for the next hour. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. You do not need to worry about checking your mics or cameras as the platform is preset to disable them. However, we still want to hear from you. The chat box is open and we encourage you to get involved, whether it's questions, thoughts or observations. We welcome it all. We will be spending the second half of our webinar answering as many of your questions during our panel session, so get thinking. We are currently streaming live on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. You're able to access previous week's recordings on YouTube by searching Enterprise Rent-A-Car Jobs, along with other great content. I definitely recommend you take a look. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. And if you've attended previous sessions, it's so nice to have you back. Diversity, equity and inclusion are at the heart of how Enterprise does business. Our commitment to a diverse workforce extends to every employee, customer and business partner. We strive to celebrate the many differences that make us unique and know that it is these differences that make Enterprise a successful business. It is our goal to create a culturally aware workforce and a culturally competent organisation that mirrors the makeup of our communities we serve. Recent findings from the Institute of Chartered Accountants showed that a lack of inclusivity has led to 42% of Black employees resigning from their jobs, compared to just 26% of white employees. Not just that, according to the research conducted by The Guardian and Operation Black Vote, it was highlighted that many Black individuals in major organisations are overqualified and underpromoted in their roles. Over the course of events in 2020, the growth of the Black Lives Matter movement and the continued underrepresentation in talent across all organisational levels shows that there is still much to be done to address racial injustice and tackle inequality. We don't have all the answers. However, together with our different perspectives and ideas, we can make that change to make inclusion an everyday reality. Black History Month was first marked in the UK in October 1987 as part of the African Jubilee year. Black History Month is a recognition of heritage, culture and achievements of Black Britons. This year's theme, Proud to Be, celebrates the personal stories and diverse legacies of Black and brown people in the UK. To celebrate Black History Month this year, we have been hosting a series of webinars to celebrate the achievements of our Black employees. These sessions have been designed to inspire, support, nurture the leaders of tomorrow. Our webinars have hosted some of our most successful Black colleagues who have shared their stories and experiences that have shaped their lives and has led to their personal and professional achievements. What a journey we have been on over the last 4 weeks. We have talked about how to build resilience and grow in confidence, the importance of communication skills, and how to leverage your authentic self to bring your true self to work. Many people disregard the role mentoring can play in an individual's success. However, if there was one theme that has tied all of our sessions together, is how fundamental having a mentor has been to all of our speakers and the impact that these role models have played in the success of their career and personal achievements. Mentoring offers you the opportunity to share strengths, but more importantly, gives you a diverse ideas on how you can improve on your areas of opportunities, whether that's personally or professionally, to achieve your goals. In today's session, we are going to dedicate the next hour to discuss the importance of having a mentor. With that said, I would like to welcome James Alakoya and Aaron Neary, two senior managers from the London and South East region, to share their stories from two very different angles. James will be talking about the mentors he has had during his career and how they've supported him. And Aaron will be talking about his role as a mentor and how he gave back to his employees and the benefits of peer-to-peer mentoring. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is James Alakoya. I'm currently an area manager at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, looking after 6 locations within the heart of London. My journey with Enterprise actually started about just under 8 years ago, where I was introduced to Enterprise via a friend. He's actually explained Enterprise to me as an opportunity to run a business, to develop and learn, But one thing that really stood out to me was the opportunity and that enterprise only promote from within. That appealed to me at the time because I was currently working as a sales assistant in a retailer where I was consistently being overlooked due to other candidates being a lot more qualified than I was. Throughout the recruitment process, I found out that I was joining a company that really did promote from within and provided me ample support and managers that were in my position or would be in my position, so that whatever challenges I was to face, I would have someone that's been there and made them really, really relatable for me. I started Enterprise as a management trainee at a location in Croydon, down in South London. I worked there for about 11 months and then got promoted to a management assistant in the same location. I then had the opportunity very shortly after to get promoted to an assistant manager over at Wimbledon, which is also in South London, where I worked as an assistant manager for about 7 months and then got the opportunity to get promoted back to my original location at West Croydon as assistant manager still. After about 12 months of that, I got promoted to the branch manager of the Croydon branch. I then had a fantastic opportunity to open up a new location in Thornton Heath, which again, not too far in South London. Being the branch manager there, I worked there for about 18 months before I had the opportunity to be promoted to an area manager and currently hold the position that I am now. Mentorship is something that has been integral in my life, both personally and professionally, from day one of my career to where I am today. A lot of my mentors are people that have related to me, people that have provided me ample support, and people that I'm still really good friends with today. 2 of the 3 mentors I'm going to be discussing today, one being Aaron, and another being Raj, who just started us off very well. I'm the first child, and I have 2 younger siblings, and my parents are of Nigerian descent. And in West African culture, there is like for those that know, there's like an unwritten rule or an expectation for you to be a leader, for you to be a role model for your younger siblings, and for you to really set the blueprint for them to go forth and essentially start their life off the back of what you've done. So this indicated to me from a very early stage that I was a mentor before I actually identified myself to be one. My first mentor was my branch manager, who I selected at the time because he was someone that looked like me, someone that spoke like me, and someone that essentially inspired to be in his position because he was a manager, and that was something that I aspired to be from day one. I learned loads of different things from him as my branch manager. Some of the real important things I learned from him initially was he taught me the importance of how to communicate and articulate myself in a very professional environment. Coming from not basically working in a very corporate environment and maybe not interacting with people that were from a similar, that weren't from a similar background to myself, he made it really important for me to understand the importance of communicating in a way that catapulted me from day one as I progressed through my career. Another really important lesson I learned from him was the ability to lead a conversation. That was super important to me at the time, was because I used that as a starting point to help me in my role as a management trainee to provide what my primary roles were at the time to provide excellent customer service and the sales element of the role. My second mentor at the time is someone I picked solely based on their performance in a sector that I wasn't the strongest at. Initially, I was really hesitant to reach out to them as the individual because they were excelling at a part of the business that I probably wasn't as strong as I would have liked to be. As soon as I reached out, she embraced me from day one, explained to myself where I was potentially going wrong, and provided me a blueprint of what I could do to get myself to perform better within that part of the business. Till today, she's someone that I speak to regularly, has helped me through many different aspects of my career. Someone that if I maybe had a bad day, I can have a conversation with and kind of rant and feel better. But also importantly, someone that's really open and honest in conversation with me in times where I have maybe fallen short and have been open and honest and said, you've messed up. This is what you need to do to get it right, and let's go again. After about 12 months into my time as a branch manager, I felt really comfortable in my ability to perform, and my performance at the time showed it. I was quite graced to work with 5 different area managers at the time who have all been promoted to regional managers all over the country. I learned loads from them, and I felt like I had what it takes to get to the next level. And that's when I stumbled upon meeting Aaron. So Aaron moved down and became the area manager of the branch that I was currently working at. And I looked at Aaron and thought there's nothing that he could really say or do to add value to me, to what I already know, coming from working from 5 different area managers who have all been promoted to look after different parts of the whole country. I thought I knew it all. Having spent time with Aaron and spoke to him and really got to understand me, I found that I was really naive in hindsight now to think that I knew it all and I was the finished article. It made me realize that I still had a lot to learn. My knowledge probably wasn't where I wanted it to be. One of the key things I did learn from Aaron, and one of the things that he promoted for me from day one, was the importance of being my authentic self. He made me realize the reason that I performed over the years that I did, the reason why I got respect in the way that I did from a lot of my peers and my team, was solely based on me and my merit. This is something that indicated to me that at the time I worked for such an inclusive company that I've had 3 different mentors from very diverse backgrounds, but they were all invested in me and taught me how to be a better version of myself. This is something that I've stayed true to throughout my current position now as an area manager who's a mentor of a number of different people from different backgrounds in my area currently. There was a stereotype at the time I had in my mind that I had to look a certain way, speak a certain way, or act a certain way to get to a position of a senior leadership position within a business. But one of the key things that Aaron made me understand is that me being myself and being unapologetically myself was the best way for me to perform. Working in an area where 7/10 of my workforce is of Black and Asian background is super important for me to pay that message that I was taught forward and ensure that they don't have maybe the same stereotypes that I had initially, thinking that I had to be a certain way or act a certain way to get to where I needed to get to, and ensure they're not holding themselves back. I'm sure most of you in the audience can relate to not seeing as much representation of Black leaders in a number of different companies worldwide. So it's really motivating for me to work for a company that values me, promotes me for my merits, and consistently allows me to be in a position, or I guess I want to be in a position to kind of inspire the future talent, future generation of people, that no matter what you look like, where you come from, you can really make a name for yourself. Thank you very much.
Cool, thanks, James. Just want to say thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today. My name's Aaron. I am also an area manager. I cover the South London area, so that's 7 branches, roughly about 50 employees, and a fleet of 1350 vehicles. So just to give you an idea of that area, that would be New Malden, Kingston, Earlsfield, the whole of Croydon, Beckenham up to Caterham, that area. So I'm here to obviously talk about mentoring as well, but more specifically peer-to-peer mentoring, and ultimately how that has developed for me over my career, which has been critical in the development of my team, but also me personally, to enhance me throughout my career. In order to do that, I feel like I just obviously want to give you a bit of a journey, a background of my journey with the company, similar to James, just to give you an idea of some context. So I actually studied at Leeds University, studied history. After graduation, after sort of 3-6 months, started applying for positions and joined Enterprise as a management trainee in Leeds City Centre. Felt pretty comfortable for me. I've been in Leeds by that point for around 4 years, familiar with the surroundings, the people, etc. So I followed the same sort of similar path to James mentioned there. I was assistant manager promoted to branch manager at Leeds Airport, which was a brand new site at the time, which was really exciting. That was all within sort of 18 months after joining the company, which really mirrors what James was saying about, you know, that quick internal progression that we offer as a business based on merit as opposed to necessarily tenure. After that, I was then promoted to Leeds City Centre. And after that, then really made a big step, I feel, which I was relocated to London. So I relocated as a branch manager to Harrow. That was really the first point in my career where I then entered a different type of environment. Very, very sort of diverse culture with all different types of, you know, customer-based ethnicities. And to be honest, I didn't really consciously think about it. I just went there and just did what I did normally. And looking back now, I probably didn't connect. Well, I know I didn't connect as well as I could have with the employees there. But nonetheless, we all got together some amazing performance. And unfortunately, because of my team's success, I was promoted to open up Park Lane in central London, which again was a new store. And then after 6 months, I fortunately had the opportunity to take on my first area manager role. That happened to be in North Essex. If you can't tell from the accent, I'm from Essex. So again, it's something I was very comfortable with. You know, I knew the locations anyway, I knew the areas, I connected with the employees pretty quickly. I was just getting used to being an area manager and what that looked like in terms of developing my branch managers fundamentally, and then how I was then going to impact all my employees in the area when I wouldn't see them on a day-to-day. How was I going to do that? Again, I didn't really have a plan for that. I just naturally went along with it. And looking back, although that was a type of peer-to-peer mentoring, I didn't have any real structure for it because I was new in my role and I was still learning. Nonetheless, I had my first area manager promotion out of the branch manager team from North Essex. We had some really, really good performance across the team, which led me to being able to apply for my next position, which was in South London. Me being me, I just went for it, applied for it, didn't really think much about it, and just relocated to South London. I'd obviously heard, you know, South London was very vibrant, was fun, and was busy. That was an understatement. It was super busy when I got there. I couldn't believe how busy it was. I wasn't used to it at all. And things just felt completely different for me. It was certainly a diverse area, multicultural. All my branches were predominantly Black. It was just something different for me. And I embraced it. I thought, wow, this is going to be a challenge for me. I'm going to have to do things differently, for sure. I was just conscious going in that I didn't want people to think, wow, here comes someone else from senior management who, you know, doesn't look like me, like James was saying, doesn't sound like me or talk like me. And here we go again. You know, certainly people from my predecessors had some amazing success out of that area, like James said. And I felt like maybe they just thought, you know, this was going to be a stopgap for me just to come in and do that. It was the opposite. And I spent some time self-reflecting after that and thinking I need to do things differently, but I wasn't sure how to get the team on board. The amazing news for me was I could tell just after a few weeks that there was unbelievable raw talent in my branches. I was so excited to get stuck in. I just didn't really know exact approach. So I actually looked to James. So James was the most experienced branch manager at the time. He was in the heart of Croydon. And I could already tell at that point that James had built that mentor network around him. He had that support network, but also he was the go-to for people that he mentored in the area. So these mentees went to James, and I could tell that there was a tight-knit circle around James for his support network that almost tightened as I came into the area, as like a sort of protective sort of mechanism, if you like. So I knew in talking to James, I was just trying to get some sort of guidelines from James really on how I might be able to sort of crack it really. And James just said to me, you've got to take some time to understand the people in the branches, you know, culture, but go further than that, you know, family, education, you know, how ambitious, but ultimately how impatient the employees are, that they just want to hit their goals right now and get promoted. So with that, I started coming up with really like a bit of a plan. And in effect, what James was actually explaining to me there was really what I would define as peer-to-peer mentoring, just understanding someone on more levels than just on a work basis. It should never be, I'm your manager, here's some goals, let's hit this performance, right, let's go. From the first conversation, you have to spend some time to gain someone's trust and understanding and understand it's a two-way relationship. It's going to help me and it's going to help you. If you have that trust and that relationship, you then set goals together, and that is then a recipe for success, and you know, you're tough to beat. Over time, I had to learn how to communicate differently. James politely said to me one time, Aaron, you just got to relax a little bit more. Like, you just got to let go. Like, I see a different side to you. My employers aren't seeing it. Like, you'll easily connect with them. Just talk to them about this and that. Don't just come in and say, let me look at this, let me look at that. And that was amazing advice for me, because then I realized I just started communicating differently, connecting with them immediately. And I realized how actual simple it's going to be to set some goals and just keep people on track. And we hadn't actually spoken before this, James and I, at much length about what we're going to talk about. And I'm really happy James mentioned the fact that one of the things I always talk about is being authentic and don't have any barriers. You're creating those barriers. Don't listen, just, you know, have your own approach. You're there for a reason. And I was using role models exactly like James. When James got promoted, there you go. There's an exact role model that you can be. And anyone can do it. Let's not make excuses. Let's set goals together and let's just do it. And I felt like that's always stayed with me in the area. And it's just meant that we've had some real good traction with that and some direction. And it just means employees just need some fine tuning and sometimes some frank conversations as well, if they have to be had, if you've got that relationship. And, you know, there's always a thanks at the end of it. And sometimes it comes my way, which I'm fine with. So I've always based my success on peer-to-peer mentoring, talking to someone on a human level, which I know sounds obvious, but there is no manager. I'm a manager and you're not. You're below me. No, this is peer-to-peer mentoring. Let's just have a conversation. How are you feeling? And let's just talk about it. With the younger generation, even more so than when I was coming up through the ranks, in terms of that huge ambition and in today's culture of wanting things right now, it's just really talking about a little bit of patience, and let's have some short-term goals ultimately. Maybe a 2-year plan that in the end of those 2 years, if you do these short-term goals, we're going to be there. And guess what? Look at someone like James Adekoya. That's what he did. That's where he is. Okay. As a result of that, I think I've had some real success in the area. So I've had 3 area manager promotions out of South London from branch managers. At one point last year, 5 of my 7 branch managers I hired as management trainees. And I like to really just point out that they were part of that peer-to-peer mentoring when they came on board. And now they're the experts in doing that with their teams because they've experienced that. That's a proud moment for me. And that means, guess what? It makes my job easier because ultimately they're mentoring their teams. And then I can just go in and obviously get involved. But and when I look at that, I think, wow, they're so much better than I was when I was a branch manager at that. And that's what it's all about for me. So that's the major takeaway when I was really preparing for today, was really that point. And it's definitely been a success for me, and it will be for the future, and taking that as a blueprint and moving forward. Of course, like James, I've had my own mentor structure throughout my career. I can think of 3 straight away that I've stuck with for years that have helped me out in those tough moments, but also sometimes saying, no, you just need to overcome that. That doesn't even sound like a big deal. And I think that's important. Again, something I'm very, very passionate about, and thanks for the opportunity just to discuss that a little bit with you guys.
Thank you for that. That was amazing. And thanks, James and Aaron, for sharing your experiences just about being mentored and being a mentor. And I think what I've picked up from listening to you both is just that you can have both informal and formal mentors throughout your life. And it's not just about your professional career, but it's about those personal experiences. But also as well, it's about the trust, the relationship, listening and learning to each other. And I think that obviously plays a massive strength to what you've both achieved in your careers. So we're now going to be moving on to our panel session, and this is where we're going to hear more around mentoring from our panelists. I'd like to welcome all of our panelists to join me on screen to kick-start our panel session.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you once again for having me. My name is Amos Majeni, and I'm the Area Manager for Group U2, Southwest Region.
Hi everybody, my name is Christine and I'm an area manager in South East London, and I look after 5 branches covering from Dartford all the way down to Sydenham.
Morning everyone, my name is Mervyn Gwembe and I'm a management trainee in Galway, Ireland, which is in the west, and a lot of you would be familiar with Ed Sheeran's song Galway Girl, the video of that was shot here in Galway.
Hello everyone, my name is Jane. I'm from the North East region and I'm currently working as an assistant manager at Loughborough.
Hi everyone, my name is Lyndon. I'm currently working at Alcastorpham branch in Edinburgh. I'm the assistant manager here as well. And that's very much it.
Fantastic. Welcome. Thanks, Amos, for kickstarting that off really swiftly. So we are going to go into question time. So from experience, whenever I've opened the chat box up for questions, nobody ever types away the first question. Everybody goes really quiet. I think I've seen one, but I've also come prepared as well. However, this session has been put together for you. So I definitely encourage you to get involved, ask questions. If there's a question you would like to ask the panel, then please type the question into the chat box and who you'd like that question to be directed to. And then my colleague Graham will be helping me answer as many as we can. But I'm going to kickstart with my first question as I've been listening to everybody. And I think I'm going to pass my first question over to Christine. Christine, obviously James talked about how he's had both formal and informal mentors. And I'm sure over your career, you've had both as well. I suppose my question is, how have you got the best out of the two different relationships?
I think the formal mentoring allows you to kind of have somebody set almost from a different angle of a professional work environment, right? So somebody who the company or your manager or somebody who's maybe more senior to you pairs you up with. And the informal mentoring allows you to have who you would connect with, you know, who you're similar to, who you're different to. And I think it doesn't stop you from having one person as a mentor. It allows you to surround your people who are very similar to you and different to you to get different perspectives in a situation. I think the more perspectives that you have in a situation, the better it is for you and you can make an informed decision.
You obviously mentioned your formal mentors are more in a professional setting. Have you used the advice from some of maybe your formal mentors in your personal life as well?
100%. I think you can apply different types of advice to different types of situations. So I think how you are at work, generally you tend to be outside of work. So, you know, being organised, for example, I think you need to be really organised to be a great leader, but you also kind of need to be organised at home to make a work-life balance work. So I think, you know, that's one example of feedback that you use in personal and professional settings.
Amos, we've heard you talk in previous sessions and you actually highlighted how mentors have played a massive influence in your career. I suppose in your views, what would you say makes a great mentor? And I suppose more importantly, how do you know if your relationship with that mentor is effective?
Great question. I think for me personally, just to even say on the panel, this wasn't planned, but I've got two of my mentors on the panel now, both Aaron and James. And they started as formal mentors and have actually gone into informal mentorship. And what has made them specifically great is that it wasn't just a one conversation piece. So initially, for example, James, when he was my branch manager, he was my mentor. I aspired to be like him as a branch manager. Aaron, as my area manager, once again, I aspired to be like him as an area manager. But we didn't necessarily just have one conversation. They ensured that they followed up with me about some of the topics we discussed and they checked up on me. In my session, I spoke a lot about going through resilience. And when I said that specifically, I spoke about my support network and how they helped me get through it. And it was conversations through James and Aaron where they said that light at the end of the tunnel, essentially, and they made it relatable. So to help me through some of those experiences based on what they've gone through as well. So essentially, to answer your question, what makes a great mentor is someone who can follow up with me and make sure that they also check in, but they can also relate the conversations and some of the situations that I've been going through. So I've looked at them not just to aspire to be like them, but also to know that I can lean on them as support as friends as well. So even the previous question that you asked, Christine, a great mentor, I think, is someone who can turn from formal to informal as well. So it's getting the best of both, essentially.
And Amos, in your relationships with both Aaron and James, who led that relationship?
Well, I'd probably say I initially started with James as my branch manager. So how that relationship came about is that I saw James as someone like me, essentially, in a senior position, which I wanted to aspire to be. And then I focus on inclusion as well, and it's not always just about color. So when I was promoted, Aaron was my first area manager, and I looked at him, and once again, he was someone who I aspired to be like. And he reminded me that I can also get to the area manager level, and he guided me through that. So just to remember that it's not always about race, but I've been able to interlink and get the best out of both of them. So they both led it in different ways, but it's been beneficial in all different aspects.
Fantastic, thank you for that. Earlier we heard James talk about, how he looked at the promote from within structure, and that filled him with confidence to know that coming into an organisation, he's always going to have some form of support. Marvin, I suppose this is my question for you. You've recently just joined Enterprise. So what support have you gained throughout our recruitment process?
So I recently joined in August. I started the recruitment process. And from the beginning, when the recruitment's talent acquisition specialist contacted me, Romania Frazi, she was just friendly, just, genuine and down to earth. And we arranged a Zoom meeting. And then after that meeting, she introduced herself, I introduced myself. And one of the main interesting points was that she started off as a management trainee as well. And straight away, you get that feeling in the organization that it promotes within. So from that stage onwards, then she said if I was successful, the next stage would be the branch visit. And the branch visit was scheduled for Friday. And I arrived on Friday, and straight away the team welcomed me lovely, like one of their core values of the door is always open. So from that initial point of view, my manager, Lewis Catigan, branch manager, she took me to the side, went through the management trainee program steps, and just, made sure that I fully understand the whole program and the steps, and that everything though was controlled within my own pace and my own time. And that was very interesting. And I was set then with another management trainee, which showed me the basics of the systems and everything. And throughout all this, they were so friendly and welcoming, and they eased, the pressure or nerves for the interview with my area manager, David Mullins. And with that interview, David Mullins laid it all on the table and explained everything, that the program wouldn't be just, a walk in the park, and there'd be challenging, there'd be some tough days, but at the end of it, the rewards are great.
Fantastic. And we are so lucky to have you. So thank you for choosing us as your opportunity. Lyndon, a little birdie tells me that you've also recently been promoted to an assistant manager. So congratulations on that. I suppose for you is, what support have you received from your transition from being a trainee, which we've learned a lot about, there's a lot of support there and, guidance, to going into that assistant manager position?
So with this one, there's been a lot of support. So within Enterprise, we have a culture where literally you'll be face to face with senior levels of management, like you probably wouldn't be in other companies. So we have sessions obviously to kind of train and develop you. I was fortunate enough to sit in one with our business rental manager. So it was a case of just kind of setting expectations of what the new role is. So I understand what I'm going into. Of course, when you apply for the role, you think it's a certain way, and then the challenges that come with that. So it's a case of speaking through with that, and then obviously having somebody there that you can go to ask questions on a day-to-day basis that you might have random questions with. And also my previous manager who I've worked with, I know I can phone him at any point if I have any questions or any queries that I do have in terms of the role itself. So within that, you kind of, as you progress through your career at Enterprise, you kind of start to build your social network and your professional network as well. And that kind of sets a platform for them to be mentors, even though it might not be official. They're always there to essentially bounce ideas off, kind of get advice on what to do next, ways to improve yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's just about setting goals, obviously trying to achieve those goals, but you need to have that support network around you to be able to help you improve. The biggest one I probably see for myself, and during my period as a management trainee to my assistant manager role, is being my area manager. She has been giving me plenty of opportunities, whether that's within work from a mentoring perspective or outside of work, where she's signed me up for a kind of a being employee. It's called the BITC cohort, where they essentially do mentoring from different organizations. So even having that support structure in place before I've even hit this role has made sure that I was essentially set up to be able to be successful as much as I can be in it.
Well done on all that. Fantastic. I can see the chat box pinging. I'm not reading everything because multitasking between the two screens is not my strength. So I'm going to pass it over to Graham for some questions. Graham, if you'd like to ask a few of the questions, because we've asked who they're directed towards as well.
Absolutely. So this is a general question from Sally Harding. So Raj, you can choose who it goes to, but what approach did you personally make to identify and approach your mentors? And how did you sell it to them by explaining what you wish to get out of the mentor relationship?
Fantastic question. And I am going to actually pass that over to Jane. Jane, if you'd like to take that one.
Hello, Raj. Thank you so much. Is it James or Jane?
Jane, not James. God, I'm getting muddled up. Jane, we'll go with Jane.
It happens all the time, James. Oh, bless you. Well, like Aaron and James have both spoken about, enterprise is very big about promoting from within. I remember when I first joined the company many moons ago, about 2 years ago, to be fully honest with you, the first person that I approached was my branch manager. And I had no idea that that person would then go on to become my mentor. And it was really good to be able to walk into a branch and see women in leadership, because it's something that I've not seen in many companies before. And from that moment on, when I spoke with my branch manager, I obviously told her what sort of expectations that I have for enterprise. You know, it's important what I can do for the company, but what else is the company going to do for me? And she was there like, okay, let's set goals together. I've been through this and I will be with you every sort of like stage of the way. And even now, when I find myself as an assistant manager at Loughborough, she's still somebody that I go to, because this was originally her branch as a branch manager. So it was really important for me to be able to identify her personally as my manager, as a mentor, and to be able to know that I can rely on her formally and informally. I know when it comes to like the different targets that I have for my career at enterprise, she's the first person I would go to. And it's not always about, oh, Jane, this is what you're doing great, and being confident, giving me the support that I need. It's also about that constructive criticism that I don't see from many other people that I get from her. And I know that that's what helps me build. So going back to the question then, yeah, that is how I have managed to deal with that element of mentorship.
Fantastic. I am now going to let James answer that because he was so eager to get involved. So James, over to you on this one.
I think for me personally, the approach I took in selecting my mentors were initially based on what my kind of strengths and my weaknesses were. So looking at myself, I understood as a young graduate starting enterprise, I aspire to be just naturally better. So for me, I picked my mentors based on people that, one, I aspired to essentially be like, but also secondly, people that were really strong in parts where I personally thought I had a weakness in. And the joys of, I mean, I know that the question asked, how did you sell it to them? I think for me, it wasn't always a matter of necessarily selling it to them. It was initially initiating a conversation to allow them to understand where I ultimately wanted to get to. And I think as time went on and the relationship we built together became stronger, they started identifying things in me that I probably didn't myself. I remember sharing a lot of my teams that when I was a trainee, I couldn't imagine being in the position I'm in now as an area manager, because it's something that I probably couldn't see. But my managers at the time, they saw some qualities in me that just needed to be fine-tuned in order for me to get to where I am today. So for me, it was a matter of approaching someone based on where I aspire to be, like, but also understanding and being self-aware of what a lot of my challenges were, and them then being a catalyst in getting me to ultimately where they saw me and where I then realized I wanted to be.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was really great. And I saw something pop up in the chat about picking mentors based on your weaknesses. Great. Graham, the next question, please.
Absolutely. So next question is from Kerith Parks. And the question is, what do you think is the best advice you have given or been given in order to plan a career path with progression, rather than simply just working to stay in the position you're currently in. So I'll just say that one more time. What do you think is the best advice you have given or been given in order to plan a career path with progression? As we've spoken about that a lot throughout the series about enterprises promote from within culture. And again, that was just addressed to everyone.
Aaron, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, no worries. I think I mentioned it briefly. I'm a big believer in setting your own goals with guidance. So if someone else is setting you goals, especially if you haven't built that long-term relationship yet, there's a danger there of just accepting those goals and whether they're easy to achieve maybe, or maybe just overstretching to that point. I think you need, like with any mentor meeting to be successful, which sort of it merges to the last question as well, is it's going to that meeting prepared. It's not just, oh, I've got a mentor meeting in the calendar. It's what am I trying to get out of this meeting? So if you're trying to get out of this meeting some career goals, you need to have some sort of understanding of where you feel you're at and where you want to go, and be willing to speak about that openly with your mentor so they can fully understand where you're at. Then they can give you some sort of honest assessment and guidance. They shouldn't be saying, okay, right, yeah, well, why don't you just do this, this, and this? Ultimately, it has to come from that person. And like Amos was saying, the key to it then is, once those goals are set, my part of role as a peer-to-peer mentor is to go back and say, hey, where are we at with those? Remember you wanted to do that? Oh, you didn't even realise. How wicked's that? And then just go from there.
Oh, thank you. Graham.
Sure, this is a great question that's just come through from Kunj. How do you deal with contradictory advice from your informal and formal mentors? Or you can make it broader. Have you ever had contradictory advice from your mentors? How do you navigate through that one?
Christine, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I think rather than looking at it as contradictory advice, I think you should just look at it as advice from different perspectives. I think everybody looks at situations in different ways. So it's really important, and I mentioned this before, it's really important to look at each situation from different angles so you can look at making the best informed decision possible. So rather than maybe looking at it from a contradictory point of view, just think that somebody's looking at the situation in a different way. So how can I use that information? Because ultimately your mentor isn't telling you what to do. It's giving you advice and guiding you on what you want to do and guiding you along the right path. So taking all of that advice and then making the best informed decision that you can is how I use that advice.
We discussed that a little bit earlier. It's just more about the diversity of thoughts and how you can improve those opportunities. Really fantastic. Great. Thank you so much for answering that.
No problem. Next, we have a question specifically for Marvin. So Marvin, what challenges have you faced so far when going through the trainee program, and how has your kind of mentors and management team kind of support you through this so far?
So I've been working as a management trainee for about 2 months now, and the most challenging aspect, especially for stage one that I'm currently in, is just gaining all this information about the organization, knowing the requirements that are needed for people to be able to rent vehicles. So that's the most challenging aspect. And in terms of the mentors, with what I'd say is my formal mentorship at the moment would be my branch manager, and also the other MTs, which, you know, have been in the company and have gone through all the stages, have been very helpful to me. And yeah, at the moment, it's basically just gaining all the information, because there's loads and loads of information to just, you know, absorb, and you cannot just take that all in one day, and it takes time.
You definitely can't take our role all in one day. And I know that was what James highlighted that got him excited about the position at Enterprise as well. That was me thinking, I'm going to have to use some of my questions, but the audience is definitely busy. Back over to you, Graham.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next question is about difficult conversations and mentoring. So as a mentor, there will be conversations you have had that might have been quite tough. For example, when an employee is underperforming, how did you approach that conversation without it being received in a negative way?
looking at my screen. Amos, obviously you've recently just been promoted into the area manager position, so loads of promotions in the last year. Fantastic, congratulations on that. Obviously you've gone into a different area and you've had to adapt, you know, into this new business. So talk me through any maybe conversations you've had to have.
I think if you relate it back to mentorship, if someone's reached out to you specifically to be a mentor, they've seen some sort of value that they can gain from you. So you probably would have set goals or whatever it may be. So if you relate to performance and you need to have a difficult conversation regarding someone underachieving, you want to start by relating it to what their goals are. So say, for example, it's to excel in their career. So previously we spoke about you reaching this level. Currently, we're not exactly where it needs to be. And then you can guide and set training and set essentially key milestones in order to get there. So having difficult conversations, I believe it's important that you just relate it back to the initial goal and then make sure that you guide the employees so they don't think that you're just saying you're underperforming in this sector based on this. It's like, we set this goal in order to get here. Right now, we're underperforming this level. We want to get here. I said, I'm going to help you get there. So let's set a plan. So essentially just making sure that we always focus on the goals and why we've been selected as a mentor, and making sure that we guide the employee in order to get to where they want, is whatever they've set as that goal, and just try and making sure that if they are underperforming, most of us have been through those similar situations, and just remind them once again, I've said it before, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we just need to focus on those key steps in order to get there. And it's only going to enhance their career and their level.
Fantastic, thank you so much.
No problem. Next question is about time management, but also building or overcoming some weaknesses. So when you've been working as a mentor or throughout completing your mentorship, how are you able to set time aside to work on your weaknesses? And if anyone would like to share if you fully overcome them. So maybe if any of the panelists wanted to share some opportunities or weaknesses they had, and how they've overcome them, and also how they've set some time aside to do that, because we all have very busy lives, don't we? Especially at enterprise.
Right. Is there anybody that's got a burning desire to answer this question first? Or shall I pick?
I can take the question.
Go for it, Lyndon. I was going to pick you anyway.
Yeah, I knew that. So that's why I kind of jumped in to give myself that confidence. So I think the question was on 2 points. How do you have effective time management to be able to obviously develop yourself within like a busy work schedule? So this is something that I had an issue with, because I always had the mentality, and the kind of the mentality that we have at enterprise is you say yes and then you figure it out after. So it's one of those, like, everybody's probably smiling because that's what we do on a day-to-day basis. But the trick and kind of like the tool that I use was something I actually got from one of my managers at the time, which was to essentially write down everything that you need to do in a specific day. And then you can basically like kind of like put it in like quadrants. And from that, put like whether it is time sensitive and urgent, whether it's not time sensitive, it's urgent. If it's not urgent, but it's time sensitive, and neither urgent nor time sensitive. So it's one of the tools that I've used to be able to kind of manage my day and make myself a little bit more effective in terms of all the things that I say, yes, I'm going to do too, just because like I have the confidence and the feeling within whatever team I'm in, we can achieve a lot, but it's just a case of being able to manage those expectations sort of thing. So that's a tool that I use on a day-to-day basis. And that's what's kind of made me a little bit more successful than I am, or than I have been. And that's testament to like having those mentors there. And I kind of want to jump back into the question that you asked Amos about having difficult conversations as well, just because I had a little bit to add into that. So with that one, yeah, because I had a situation myself where my like branch manager at the time, we were clashing a little bit just because of the way she was communicating to myself, or the way that they were putting stuff across to me. So within that, like I took that as an opportunity, not only just to obviously kind of develop myself, but also develop them as well, because you find yourself in situations where you have to do sort of like reverse mentoring. So to be able to develop yourself, it might mean developing others. So by doing that reverse mentoring, highlighting what their kind of like faults are or what their weaknesses are, it kind of helps you to improve yours, just in case you're in that situation where now if I become a branch manager, I know that I would handle that situation different. So it's just a case of taking day-to-day stuff and learning from it, and then obviously developing from that as well. And then just kind of like using that tool to be able to basically improve yourself. And from the time management aspect, I'll go back to that question. So just using that tool, and obviously what I also learned from the kind of like
external mentoring scheme that I was on was have a specific time per every week, even just an hour, that you designate to yourself, block out on your calendar so people know you're not available, so you can take the time to be able to work on whatever you've potentially discussed in any mentoring meetings, whatever you want to work on from your own personal perspective as well.
Great advice. And we at Enterprise are all yes people, aren't we? We find it very difficult to say no. Great advice there. 1 hour to yourself. Hopefully the audience got the whole time sensitive versus urgent versus time sensitive part as well.
Yeah.
No problem. Next question would be, I think, Jane, I'm sure you can take this one. So as you get promoted and start to move up into positions of management, how do you handle the changes in dynamics or relationships with previous people that may have been on the same level to you, may have been your peers, but now you have to manage them? And have you kind of encountered any challenges or problems with this, as we've spoken a lot about the promote from within culture at Enterprise as well?
Absolutely, Graham. It could be a case, and an example from myself is being in a branch where there is a lot of people at the same level as me, and then being in a position where a job has come out and we've all gone for that position, and one person has got that position rather than the other. And that is a situation that happened with me. And I am a big person on what Aaron spoke about remaining authentic, being true to yourself. And I am a big team player as well. It's important that even though you're promoted and the people that you used to be on the same level with, that you're still able to maintain those respect barriers. And it's really important what Lyndon has said as well about reverse mentoring, because it could be the case that you've been awarded that position because of your hard work. However, there are still things that you could learn from the rest of your peers. Just being able to set an example as a person in management to them, but also make it in a way where you're also in a position where you can learn, and to be able to have that willingness to learn from them as well, and which I think is really important.
Final question. If you could give, and this is a great question that came through in the actual Q&A, is if you could give yourself or your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? So a bit of self-reflection there.
Should we let everybody have a chance to answer that? Shall we start with you? I'm going to go with who's on my screen first. So Amos, do you want to take that one bit of advice? What would that be?
Yeah, I think if we were to relate it specifically to this topic in this conversation, the advice that I'd give my younger self would be to reach out to as many people as possible for as much advice as possible, because you get so many different perspectives, and it's good to pick on different strengths and weaknesses. There's so many different much advice that I'd give my younger self, but relating specifically to mentorship, it would be to reach out for as much support as you can.
Fantastic. Thank you. Marvin? Oh no, we've done so well getting through this call without saying you're on mute. But Marvin, I've just had to say those words. You are on mute.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, so for myself, really, it's just that just slowing down and understanding to take time for things to come into you, because most of the time you just want to do things fast and go through it with speed, whereas the importance of things is to slow down and fully understanding something like properly, and just knowing something. They're two different things.
Fantastic. Thank you. Lyndon, over to you. One bit of advice, please.
Probably say kind of similar to what Amos said. Have that support network around you, because you never know when you're going to need it, and you never know what you're going to need a certain person. So having as many people as possible is probably what I'd say would be the biggest advice I'd give to myself, to be able to continue to always improve yourself and just have people you can speak to about different things, because then that creates a lot of clarity in what you're trying to achieve and what your goals may be.
Jane?
The one I'll probably say, I can think of a lot, but the one I'll probably say is be authentic, remain true to yourself. At the end of the day, people will like you and people will accept you for exactly who you are. And even at Enterprise, I feel that one of the things is that I am respected and I am accepted for exactly who I am. So just being able to just remain your true self and knowing that whether it be your area manager or your mentor or the people that you're working with, they will love you for exactly who you are.
Christine.
Mine is don't be so hard-headed. I think it's really easy to get advice, but I think it's really hard to take advice. So actually what people are telling you to take it on board and make the change is actually really, really difficult. Well, I found it really difficult anyway. So I think that I do it, but I don't actually fully take it on board. So yeah, my piece of advice to my younger self is, probably my older self too, is don't be so hard-headed.
Fantastic. And then I've got a final question for both James and Aaron, and this is sort of the theme that we've really ended a lot of our webinars on. So hopefully you can incorporate this question about what advice you would give your younger self into this. So Aaron, if you'd like to take the question, which is, why is it important to you to use mentoring to create a diverse and inclusive work environment?
Diverse workforce mentoring, because everyone has their own strengths and attributes, and it's about, you know, for me, if you talk about a weakness, jumping in with both feet, not taking the time, expecting everyone just to come along with me, and not individually talk to people and work them out. And I think that ties into mentorship, on the basis that if you work out different people's attributes and characteristics and their strengths, and then help them with their weaknesses, like James was talking about, then you get a well-rounded team. But then you get to work out who's great in an area, and if everyone's got that peer-to-peer mentoring and everyone's willing to help each other out, and then all of a sudden what you get is everyone becoming well-rounded, and you have a really balanced business, but everyone feels that they're achieving and working on themselves, which means they hit their own goals, and together you all hit one goal.
Thank you. James, would you like to take that question as well?
I think that question is really important, especially working in like I mentioned before, 70% of my workforce is of Black or Asian background. It's super important for me to ensure that I'm providing mentorship in the right way, because I think one of the mistakes or obstacles that I faced is sometimes in our minds we we limit ourselves by setting a stereotype of what we ultimately want to think we should be versus where we can actually aspire to be. So I think that mentorship, especially working in diverse environments, is super important, because as a business, we represent in our local branches a lot of the local communities that we're based in. So it's important from a relatability standpoint to ourselves, but also to our customers, in order for us to be in a position to perform as individuals, but as a collective as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. The chat box is on fire with questions, but we will definitely take those away and get back to you. I would like to say thank you to Aaron, to James, all of our panelists, for sharing their insight and wisdom today, as well as the great questions from the audience too. We have now come to the end of our webinar sessions to celebrate History Month. And we really hope that the stories and content that have been shared today and previous week connected with you and will benefit you in your future, whether that's while you're still at university or as you embark on your careers. We will be reaching out to you soon to let you know a little bit more about our Future Black Leaders programme, a training opportunity we will be running in 2022 to upskill our future leaders. With that said, have a fantastic Friday afternoon, and we'll look forward to connecting with you in the near future.